Today I'm going to show you what the different grinds are on the Edel wedges. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. You may be looking at Edel golf clubs. In fact, your SMS wedges are some of the best wedges I have ever played. But one of the things that's difficult on their website is to tell what the difference is between the grind options. Now, you can pretty much get any grind on any Edel SMS wedge, as far as I can tell. And that's why I wanted to show them to you, because they do have pictures and descriptions of them. But what I really think they need are 3D models of those grinds from different angles, or maybe rotatable models or something like that on their website, so that you can really see the difference. Now, I have 1, 2, 3 SMS wedges here, all with different grinds. I bit the bullet and bought all 3 for you so that I could show them to you. So let's take a close look. All right, so I have my 3 Edel wedges here. Now, you might be saying, Pete, when I looked on the website, there were actually 4 grinds available. Actually, the one that I don't have here is, I think, the C grind, and that's because it's kind of a player's grind. It's a very low bounce, so it's a wedge that is meant for doing cool things around the green, that cool flop shot, that cool chip shot, you know, the flip through and upwards on the ball, and all these kinds of things. And generally, for a golfer like me, some amount of bounce is helpful, and the more bounce that I can get, the more helpful it is. So that's why I actually only have the T, the V, and the D grind here. I generally would not, even in tight conditions, probably play with the C grind. I do want to show you my 60 degree there and what grind I picked for it, but basically I'm trying to show you the grinds for the most part. Now, I want to show you on this one, this is the V grind, Victor right there, and what we have here is a pretty typical looking grind, and I will try to show you here that, first of all, I really love the machining. I mean, the Edel work is second to none, for sure. You can see that on their putters, but I am super happy to see this on their wedges too. So what we have here is this leading edge that's rounded. It kind of looks like the leading edge of an airplane wing to me. And what I love about that is that you don't have this razor blade like sharp edge digging into the ground. Now, I want to read to you the V grind before we get into it. The V grind is a V-shaped grind, right up here, right, with medium high bounce. This grind is optimal for golfers with a moderate to steep angle of attack, like me, with a larger divot, like me. Inspired by our most popular DVR grind, this sole is great for golfers with a steeper swing motion. A higher bounce angle closer to leading edge allows the sole to engage with the turf quickly, resulting in minimal hesitation through sand or turf. So what this does here, and that's why I have it kind of here on my stronger wedge, is that when this is going through the ground, coming down through this whole edge here is going to interact with that ground, right? And it's going to be a big flat surface, high bounce. You know, you can see here that this edge is quite a bit higher than that front leading edge, and that's going to prevent you from digging. So a lot of times this might be rounded here. That's why it's a V grind. It's kind of this flat leading edge, flat trailing edge right there. But what you might be able to see there is kind of a high bounce. This peak of the V here is quite a bit higher than the rest of the club. So that's what I love about this. I would say that this is probably their most traditional high bounce, high forgiveness grind of any of their wedges. All right, so I'm just going to put that down there for a second. And now we are going to go to this club, which you might be able to see here is the D grind. So if you want to get your hands on the D, grab this little bad boy. The D likes being grabbed. And now I want to read you the description of the D grind. The D grind is a dual surfaced high bounce option, optimal for golfers with a steep angle of attack and a large deep divot. Again, pretty similar to the V grind there. A channel in the midsole area creates a dual sole with 2 separate bounce surfaces. The high bounce leading edge allows the wedge to cut through the turf at impact without resistance, while the high bounce on the second surface prevents any excessive digging. This one is the most interesting of all the bounces to me, and I wasn't really expecting this. To be honest, I read the description, I was like, okay, there's 2 leading edges to this thing? There are, really. Again, we have this kind of airplane wing leading edge. I love the fact that that is nice and rounded. Again, the milling's beautiful. But if we start going around here, what you can see is we absolutely have 2 edges. This one is a pretty steep leading edge right there. It might be a little hard to see there, but what you can see is we have this leading edge. It's pretty short, but it's pretty vertical, and this edge right here is much higher than this edge right here. So even if you were to totally cover up this second edge right there, you know, this is a pretty high bounce leading edge. Now what we have here is this channel, and that's what they mean by really a cut in there. It's almost like a recessed negative negative cutout here. It's almost like it's drilled through the top, and that means this whole edge right here is also a second high bounce edge. So you have this high bounce edge right there, and then a second high bounce edge. So you almost have like two teeth of a gear, you know, so like on a saw blade, if it's like this and it's cutting through the wood, it can't go backwards because those teeth will cut into it, right? So that's kind of what this is. It's kind of like a gear right up there, and it works. I mean, I use this in pretty adverse conditions, heavy rough, those types of things, you know, wet ground where I'm really worried about burying the club head, taking a big divot, something like that. And so that works. It's really kind of interesting. I've never had a club that has two bounce edges on it. So that is really interesting, and it's really worked well for me. Now, the last club I want to show you, and this is the one I use around the green for those really artistic shots, those artisanal shots where my short game is just like Phil Mickelson. This one is the T grind, and I want to read you the description on the T grind here. The T grind is a triple sole grind with 3 surfaces, utilizing a high bounce leading edge, followed by a crescent-shaped lower bounce surface and extreme heel relief. This grind is optimal for golfers with a moderate to steep angle of attack with normal sized divot. These 3 surfaces allow you to open the face without increasing the effective bounce for better performance on tight lies. Now that's why I wanted this grind on this club. 60 degrees here, and this is the one that I would use right around the green, you know, for a flop shot or something like that. And so what you can see here, first of all, a lot of heel relief, especially right in there. You might be able to see it. It kind of cuts up to this weight pretty aggressively, so that when you're putting this down on the ground and you're opening it up, there isn't as much material here to kind of continue to lift up that club, right? You can just open it up and it stays pretty flat. Now, this does have basically a 3 edge grind to it. You can see again kind of this high bounce leading edge, and then a little bit of a more moderate bounce, and then this is kind of a negative angle. So if I look at it just like this, you know, that high bounce leading edge, sorry if it's a little hard to see there, kind of this more medium bounce and then negative bounce right there. So the peak of the bounce is right up here, right? And what I would say is that this is actually pretty typical, I think, of a lot of wedges. What they might do is actually kind of round this whole area. Edel does is kind of has some sharp cuts here. I do love it. I mean, it's pretty obvious what kind of grind it is when they do that, but a lot of companies might just even round that out, so you wouldn't even notice that you're kind of getting kind of this rounded edge, right? So, you know, it's just a little more sharp, as opposed to this one where it's very clearly just one real leading edge there, right? Or this one where we have 2 leading edges, which is interesting and unique. All right, so that is really the difference between the 3 grinds, and I would say for a lot of everyday trunk slamming amateur weekend golfers like myself, I think that the T grind makes most sense in the club that you're going to use for chips, pitches, and also your flop shots, those shots around the green where you need it to sit because you want to open up that club. I would also say this is nice for even kind of some fairway work, those types of things. Now, either one of these grinds I think would be fine for the heavier rough, even shots that you might take from the fairway that are going to be 3/4 swings, half swings, those types of things. I am not really sure if this double edge is really superior to the one big edge. You know, for me, and I'm probably not good enough to see some of those really, really subtle details, that both of these are really great clubs. They are both go-to clubs if I am hitting out of some grass or deep stuff, but even if I am 60, 70, 80 yards away from the green, I will happily pull out either of these. To me, they seem to interact with the fairway that far out or the rough that far out in kind of the same way. So, you know, between those 2 grinds, I can't tell you that I really love one over the other, but this is probably a little more traditional, and this one looks really, really cool. And this one, man, allows you to do some awesome flop shots. So if you're thinking about the Edel SMS wedges, I think they are absolutely phenomenal. I love them. Full face grooves, beautiful clubs. I did a full review on them in another video, so you can check that out. But if you are trying to figure out which grind to get because you're already sold on the multi-port weighting system, then hopefully this helps you choose between these 3 grinds. So if you want to pick up Edel golf gear or these wedges, I'll put links to them in the description below. Peter Von Panda, out.
We can discover more and explore so much deeper.